we are taught a very specific genesis of American history. A single year etched into textbooks as the definitive origin of human bondage in the United States, 1619. But what if this date, meant to mark a beginning, is actually the middle of a much older, more expansive narrative? What if the true roots of this institution predate Jamestown not by a few years, but by generations? In late August of 1619, the White Lion, an English privateer commanded by John Job, sailed into Point Comfort and dropped anchor in the James River. Virginia colonist John Rolfe documented the arrival, noting that 20 and odd Africans were brought ashore. For centuries, this journal entry has served as the symbolic starting line for slavery in America. But the journey of these captives was already steeped in tragedy long before they reached Virginia. They were Kimbundu, speaking people from the Kingdom of Mindongo, in present-day Angola. Forced to march hundreds of miles to the coast, they were loaded onto the San Juan Bautista, a Spanish-Portuguese slave ship carrying roughly 350 captives. Disease and starvation took a swift toll. 150 people died en route. As the vulnerable ship approached Veracruz, Mexico, it was ambushed by the White Lion and another English privateer, the Treasurer. The English crews seized 50 to 60 of the surviving Africans and set sail for Virginia, where they were traded for provisions. Victuals to Governor Sir George Yeardley and head merchant Abraham Piercy in Jamestown. While 1619 is a pivotal moment, focusing solely on the English colonies omits the global scale of a transatlantic trade that had been operating for over a century. The European trade of enslaved Africans began as early as 1441, when the Portuguese captured 12 people in Cabo Branco, modern-day Mauritania, and brought them to Portugal. By the late 1490s, Christopher Columbus likely transported the first Africans to the Americas on his expeditions to Hispaniola, now Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Though their exact status as free or enslaved remains a matter of historical dispute, this timeline perfectly aligns with the expanding shadow of the slave trade. As historian Michael Guasco observes, to ignore the preceding century of the Atlantic world vastly understates the brutal reality of an ongoing system. The Spanish and Portuguese had long been co-conspirators in this trade, and their colonial footprint reached North America far earlier than the English. According to historians Linda Haywood and John Thornton, significant numbers of enslaved Africans were brought to the region that would become the United States well before 1619. In 1526, nearly a century before the White Lion dropped anchor, enslaved Africans were forced into a Spanish expedition to establish an outpost in what is now South Carolina. But they rebelled. Their uprising actively prevented the Spanish from founding the colony, though the influx of enslaved people continued, leading to a permanent slave population around St. Augustine, Florida. The English were not blind to the practices of their fellow Europeans. They inherited and adopted them. Enslaved Africans may have been aboard Sir Francis Drake's fleet when he arrived at Roanoke Island in 1586, having previously enslaved between 1,200 and 1,400 Africans alongside his cousin, John Hawkins, in Guinea and Sierra Leone. By 1616, Africans from the West Indies were present in the English colony of Bermuda, providing crucial expertise in tobacco cultivation to the Virginia Company. The events in Virginia did not happen in a vacuum. They were the downstream result of colonial projects in Mexico, the Caribbean, Peru, and Brazil. In 1619, slavery as a strict legal framework did not yet exist in Virginia. It was a gradual, creeping process. It wasn't until the passage of the Virginia Slave Codes in 1705 that the horrific dehumanizing nature of chattel slavery was fully legalized, explicitly stripping away all legal rights. To point to a single ship in 1619 as the invention of slavery in America is to fundamentally misunderstand history. The English colonies merely joined a vast, ongoing tragedy that had already reshaped the globe.